Hi, my name is Daryl Vinson, and I am going to be doing a blog presentation on discovering your authentic leadership. What exactly is leadership? What makes a leader? Research has proven that there are absolutely no definitive characteristics or background or pedigree or particular DNA makeup that actually determine who or what makes a great leader. What are the characteristics that make a great leader? What are the personality traits that make a great leader? There's absolutely no defining parameters of what actually would determine who's going to be a great leader and who's not going to be a great leader. But we absolutely have in this day and age is that we have people who who are impersonators of great leaders. We see people who pretend to be, leaders. They do it in humorous manners and in satirical settings. Then we have people who are imitators of leaders. They imitate what they do. They pretend to be something that they're not. We're people who replicate, the patterns of leaders. And what happens as we grow as leaders and we do not begin to create our own style and utilize our own personality traits to become a leader of in of ourselves, we'll become cookie cutters, and we never truly define who we actually are as leaders. Each leader, just as unique as you are, you also have a voice. Our voices are as unique as our fingerprints. There's no two voices alike. These particular voices that come from leadership are able to speak to different levels of demographics. There's a voice that will speak to one demographic. There's a voice that will speak to a certain age group. There's a voice that will speak to different people on different levels. So leadership is not just one voice. Leadership is absolutely many voices. And as you become an authentic leader, who actually are you? What sound is coming from your leadership, the heart of your leadership? Who actually are you? Are you a lip sync leader? Are you just pretending like you're saying something, but you're actually not? Are you actually emulating someone else and not really being true to who you've been called to be? Or are you trying to be like Michael Jordan, who sometimes we want to create him as a leader, but oftentimes when we look at him, we are actually imitating a brand and not the leader of who Michael Jordan is or his true self. Why? Because we don't oftentimes see his true self. We actually see the brand, we see the marketing, we see the machine behind him. And that sometimes looks like his leadership and is not, and is actually a manufactured product. Within leadership, we have those people who create cults of personality, those that follow a leader because they're charismatic, because they have something to say, or they speak to a passion that this particular group or person may have. They have the ability to elicit emotional responses. They oftentimes stir up the flames of pain or flames of hurt within someone, and they become that answer to that. They discuss it, they speak and give voice to people that normally would not necessarily have a voice. But the problem with people who have a cult type personality and their leadership is that their leadership is often egocentric. It is self-serving. It is goal driven, not for the people that they speak to, but for their own self. And this self-serving mentality, self-serving um, uh, mantra creates a cult following that is not necessarily rooted or guided by moral compasses. It's not built upon the foundation of values or things that are prosperous for the community. They usually only serve the group or serve the leader in and of itself. Each leader has a story, and it is understanding the story of that particular leader is what will bring that leader's life into context. Every leader is shaped by experience. Every leader has a personal narrative that has to be identified. It has to be defined. It has to be articulated so that as an authentic leader, you become relatable. You are able to identify with your audience. You're able to find a common denominator in practice upon which you and your audience can actually speak, relate, and actually be able to communicate on. Now, oftentimes, one's experience doesn't necessarily speak to another person's experience because of their background, their socioeconomic demographics, where they're from, race, color, cultural barriers, whatever it may be. However, the impact of the experience of a leader can actually impact a group of people, such as the case of Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela's story of being an activist and fighting against the oppressive apartheid landed him in prison for 27 years. And majority of the people have never been in prison for 27 years, have never fought against an oppressive government and wrongly thrown in jail and convicted, innocently convicted of crimes and charges that were false. But his experience impacted people. Thus, he was able to become a transformational leader based upon his experience. And this right here help to define the context of who he was. As authentic leaders, we have to begin to define our own story. We have to be able to find who we are. What experiences do we have that have shaped my mind, that have created my moral cauldron of values? What is it that's stirring me that can stir you? What is it that shaped and impacted my life that can also shape and impact your life? This is where we become self-aware. This is where we're able to examine our motivations. We're able to look at our values. We're able to determine it through self-exploration what is our extrinsic and intrinsic values, those things that are the driving factors that causes us to want to go down path A or path B. Self-exploration as an authentic leader allows us to begin to look at our values and begin to examine them to see what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed. It also allows us to define what we consider success to be. As an authentic leader, is our success based upon material gain? Is it defined by what other people write about us, how many articles are done on us, how many times we're on television, what kind of press we have, what kind of financial success that we may have? Are those the definitions of success for us being an authentic leader? Or as an authentic leader, or do we define success by how we're able to impact other people, and material things are not the benchmarks by which we measure our achievements? One of the great things about being an authentic leader is having the courage to be honest about our life experiences. Magic Johnson, one of the greatest basketball players in the world, was able to come before the whole world and to lay his life in front of us and to be able to speak to us about the moral failures that he encountered and that he lived that led him to become HIV positive. That particular humility, humane approach, and vulnerability propelled him to the forefront of the fight against HIV and AIDS worldwide. This particular authentic leader broke barriers of every race, culture, socioeconomic background that the world has ever known. And because of his authenticity, is his honesty, his ability to determine that success is not on the basketball court, but my success is being able to fight a disease that has taken the lives of so many people, created an authenticity that translated into other things that has once again kept him in the forefront of leadership in our community and in our nation. Leadership is a team sport. Leaders cannot succeed on their own. You must have supportive teams to provide the affirmation that you need, the advice that you need, and the much needed correction that we must have as leaders. Our support team has to be multifaceted. It has to include family, mentors, friends, colleagues, people from our childhood. This will create a network of trust that we are able to pull on when we need to. And once we've created this network of trust, we are able to receive something as an authentic leader is what's known as unconditional support, which is gonna equal to acceptance of a leader's true self. If I know that I have unconditional support, even in my failures, I'm able to actually identify my failures, face my issues, face my problems, and overcome them. Why? Because my support system is strong and is not wavering. This is why we were able to see Magic Johnson come and do what so many other athletes, so many other people in the spotlight could not, would not, and will not ever do. And that is to come before the world and to admit a fault and to face a moral dilemma and to lay before the world character flaws that they live with, that they walk with, that would normally just that would they know would destroy their career and their reputation. But because of the unconditional support of family, mother, father, an employer, a wife, close personal friends, he was able to face who he was and to become an authentic leader. Grounding an eagle. Authentic leadership requires something that's very important, and that's known as a balanced life. We live in a society where family is not celebrated. Being a good husband and a father are not the different, or a good mother are not necessarily considered to be models for success. However, to be an authentic leader, these are consistent elements that must that are requirements. Having consistency in work, family, community, friends, this allows us to become true to oneself. And oftentimes we're not true to oneself, so we become what is known as a chameleon leader. When we're at work, we are one person. When we're around the family, we're another person. When we're out with our friends, we are another individual. We are in the gym or in some other environment, we have changed again. So in other words, we really don't know who we are. We're not actually authentic. We are actually changing each and every time that we are within different environments and different settings. This right here causes an instability within one who wants to be an authentic leader. Strong personal life equals to effective leadership within the workplace. If home is not right, oftentimes the workplace will not be right. We see this in our school systems every single day. When we look at the urban school systems and children are hungry, they're living in environments of poverty and lack and struggle, and then they come to school and this same environment that they come from is played out in the classroom. And we want to understand, well, why is it they're not performing? It's not because they're not as intelligent or not academically gifted. It is because there's no balance in their life. And so the consistent elements that are in their home become consistent elements that play themselves out at school. This is why it's very important and imperative to utilize physical exercise, spiritual practices, prayer, things of that nature that bring peace to us, community service. If you're ever feeling bad about yourself, get up and go do something for somebody else, and I guarantee you will feel good about yourself. Anytime a leader will put his hand to the plow to help someone else, he will always feel better about himself. Leaders empower leaders. Authentic leaders should have the ability to recognize leadership ability in other people. Part of this also is being able to empower other people. Empower them, sometimes with the word, sometimes with a promotion, sometimes with other duties and things. Sometimes it is with a belief factor in someone else. Being able to empower others must go beyond our initial scope of influence and those who are within our inner circle or those that we can reach and touch and have everyday interaction with. Our empowerment of other leaders must be multi-leveled. We must be able to empower people that are not in our necessarily sphere of influence, that don't work in our office but may work downstairs, work in the hall, work in the field, work in sales, people that we don't see every single day. We must be able to come up with ways in which we can inspire the spirit of leadership. One of the ways to do that is by building relationships with people. Building a relationship with the man who's the janitor, the lady who's coming in and emptying the trash, speaking to her, finding out about her family, where she's from, things that are bothering her, what are her thoughts on the business. You'd be surprised. This is where authentic leaders build relationships. By doing this, they also are building credibility. Being able to manage crisis builds credibility, builds trust, and this enables growth among other people within your nation. Authentic leadership. We rise by lifting others, and true leaders don't create followers, they actually create more leaders.